So I could give my big formal interview or intro, but I just want to start by saying it's been such a fun day. Today really epitomizes what exploring by the seat of your pants has been all about. We started the day live in Alberta with the Phil Currie Dino Museum with Dr. Emily Bamforth doing a tour of their amazing galleries. We just wrapped up with the Toronto Zoo talking about animal food with like a live giraffe, which is basically like a dinosaur-sized mammal. And we are wrapping up with even more dinosaurs today at the Royal BC Museum with Dr. Victoria Arbour. She's one of my favorite people we've ever had on the broadcast. She's joined us more than almost any other person we've ever had on, so it's such a thrill to have her back. I can't encourage you enough. If you get a chance to go to the museum in person or check out their site, there's lots to explore and discover there. And if you want to see more of Victoria, you can head to our YouTube channel and dive in there as well. Before I bring her on with her slick new cool setup they've got there at the museum, I want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, if you want to play along with a little 4-question quiz to test your understanding and have some fun, we'll be doing that in about 20-25 minutes. So without further ado, as I've said, Dr. Arbour's joining us. She's going to take us on a deep dive about discovering dinosaurs in British Columbia. I hope you're as excited as I am. I sure hope you are. We're going to turn it over to her. Thank you so much for joining us, Victoria, and take us away.
Thanks so much for having me. Hi, everybody. I am really excited to talk about dinosaurs today. I'm going to do a little introduction about where I am and who I am, and then we're going to dive into dinosaur stuff. All right, so I want to first start by acknowledging that the Royal BC Museum is located on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen peoples, which are today represented by the Songhees and Ekswepsum nations. And I'm really grateful to be able to live in this beautiful place. This isn't my original home. I'm from Nova Scotia, Canada originally, and I've been living here for about 7 years and very grateful for the opportunity to do what I do here on these beautiful lands. For anyone who doesn't know where Victoria, British Columbia is, where Victoria Arbour lives, we live in British Columbia on the west coast of Canada, this giant province on the west coast. And the Royal BC Museum is located here on Vancouver Island, this little pretty big island off the west coast again. And we're located at the very southern tip of it. And this is what my museum looks like. It's a beautiful place to work. And I love working here and getting to do all the things that I do with dinosaurs here every day. As a curator of paleontology, my job has a bunch of different parts. I help look after the fossil collection, which is actually mostly not dinosaurs here yet. Part of what I'm trying to do is find more dinosaurs for our collection, but we have beautiful fossils of ancient sea creatures and plants and insects, all kinds of neat things that lived at the same time as dinosaurs, before the dinosaurs, after the dinosaurs. And so we're trying to get more dinosaurs here. And that's part of where my research program comes in. So I'm a scientist, I'm a paleontologist. We go out and look for new dinosaur fossils. We bring them back to the museum, we study them. I get to do math and drawing and writing, all those great things that a scientist does. And then I get to do fun parts where I talk to the public, like you guys, about what we've found and share what we've learned and share our knowledge. So I do lots of presentations, and I also help make new exhibits at the museum. So it's a super fun job, and I really love doing it. And I really like this part where I get to share what we've learned and what we've found out. I also want to acknowledge that in addition to being on the territories of the Lekwungen peoples, the fossils I'm talking about in this presentation come from across the province of British Columbia. And we work on the traditional territories of the Tahltan and Gitxsan nations, the Saulteaux and West Merwili First Nations, and also just on Treaty 8 territory up in the northeastern part of the province. And we're really grateful that we are able to work on this land. And in many cases, we are joined by members of those nations who work with us or give us advice on the best ways to be doing this work on their land. And so we're really grateful for that as well. Okay, so today I'm talking about all of the different work we've been doing for the last few years where we are looking for new dinosaurs across British Columbia, Canada. When you think about places to find dinosaurs, British Columbia is probably not the first place on your list of good places to find dinosaurs. And it is harder to find them here compared to places like Alberta, where I've spent a lot of time hunting for dinosaurs previously. Or if we have anyone tuning in from the US, places like Montana and Colorado and New Mexico are also great places. These are all desert places, and we don't really have the same kinds of deserts in British Columbia. So we have to get creative and look for dinosaurs up in mountains and along rivers, which is very challenging at times. But they're here, and there are more to be found. And so that's what I really like about my role here. A lot of this research starts with a really fun little dinosaur who I consider a close personal friend. This is Pherosaurus sustatensis. It's BC's only unique dinosaur species, for now at least. And we have tend to call him Buster. So Buster is a little dinosaur that was found, his skeleton was found in the 1970s by a geologist working along the Sustut River in northern BC. And he just happened to find these bones. And then I started working on them as an undergrad student back in Nova Scotia. And now they're actually part of our collection here at the Royal BC Museum. And in 2019, with my friend David Evans, who's a curator at the Royal Ontario Museum, we realized that these bones belonged to a species of dinosaur that we hadn't recognized before, and we gave him the name Pherosaurus. So that's pretty cool. So far, Pherosaurus hasn't been found anywhere else except this one spot in BC. So it's pretty unique. And it also tells us that we can have unique species of dinosaurs in British Columbia and that we should keep looking for more. I went back to look for more of Buster and other dinosaurs that might have lived alongside him in 2017. But the area where he was found was, at the time, a railway line under construction. And it's been abandoned and it's all grown in with trees and plants now. So it's not a really great place to look for dinosaur fossils. So we've had to shift to other places to see if we can find more of Buster's friends and foes, I suppose, too. And that's what has led me to doing some really exciting, super fun, super challenging work in a place called Spatsizi Plateau Wilderness Provincial Park. It's actually the same kind of rocks, the same age and type and sort of environment as where Buster was found, but about 150 kilometers north of the Sustut River. And it's located way up north in British Columbia. The closest towns are Iskut and Dease Lake, which are little towns of only a couple hundred people. And then Spatsizi Plateau is a big, basically uninhabited area without any major towns in it. The only way we can get there is by helicopter. So we actually have to fly in a helicopter for about an hour each way. And we go up to this beautiful area where there are these big sort of empty plateaus with just a little bit of grass and mostly rocks. And so that's a much better place to look for dinosaur fossils. There's also a lot of bugs. All those little brown things blowing around on the screen are mosquitoes that were driving us nuts, and the helicopter very helpfully blew them away for us for a few minutes, which was really nice. This is really remote fieldwork, so everything that we need has to come in with us. We live in camps and eat basically dehydrated food that we reheat with water that we collect from the melting snow. We go there in July and there's still snow there, and we've actually had snowstorms pretty much every time I've been there in the summer. So it's a very different place than the hot, dry deserts that I've been used to working in before, but a very exciting place regardless. Instead of walking along in kind of like these desert badlands, the rocks that we're looking at are sort of tumbled down from the top of the mountain. So they're these big boulder fields or scree slopes. And we basically try to clamber around them without falling and breaking our legs and look for dinosaur bones that are sticking out of these rocks or have been sort of broken in half in these rocks. And there are lots of them, more than we can actually collect in any given field season. And a lot of them are quite big and really well preserved. So my student Brady here is pointing at a big white chunk of some sort of dinosaur leg bone. The bone on the right-hand side of the screen that has that really weird shape is actually a backbone or a vertebra from some kind of big dinosaur that my friend Derek found. And there's lots and lots of bones across here. So we try to collect the ones that are the best preserved that would give us the best chance of figuring out what dinosaur they came from. So we usually don't collect things like broken ribs, and we do collect things like that backbone. This rock is really hard to work in. Instead of using sort of little chisels and hammers and awls and just being able to use our muscles to dig up the rock, like in a lot of other places, we can only collect these by using power tools like this big concrete cutter or rock saw. It's really loud and it makes a lot of dust, and they're fairly dangerous, so we have to be very careful. We use lots of safety equipment when we're doing them, but it does look very cool when we're using them. We basically use that to sort of cut big lines and cracks into the rock, and then we use our muscles and really, really heavy-duty hammers and chisels to try to split the rock along those cracks that we've made. So it takes a long time. Collecting just one little backbone can take half a day to a day. So we usually collect just 1 or 2 bones per day when we're doing it this way. In 2022, the second time that I visited Spatsizi Plateau, over the course of the 10 days that we were there, we collected about 15 bones, which I thought was pretty good considering how difficult it was. In 2024, which was the last time we went there, we went with a bigger crew of people. We had 6 people instead of 3. And I wanted to go hike up to the very tippy top of the mountain that we camp underneath, which is basically what we're looking at now. I'm standing pretty close to the top and sort of looking down on those boulder fields. The green area would be where our tents go. And then we've got this interesting kind of flat sandy area right at the top of the mountain here. And we thought that looked really interesting from down below. We were like, we should go up and check that out. And it's quite different. It's not those big boulders that we were seeing on the slopes. Instead, it's a lot sandier. And we realized as we started to walk across it that there were dinosaur bones just laying on the surface everywhere in a dinosaur bone bed at the top of this mountain. So that was super exciting and a lot easier to collect than the ones that need the concrete saw. This is my friend Emily, one of my students, former students, is holding a little piece of a dinosaur leg bone. On the right is my hand holding pieces of a tyrannosaur tooth. I was pretty excited to find that one. And we found hundreds of little bone fragments by basically doing this for like 3 days straight. Everybody kind of picking a little spot and crouching down and keeping their head basically plastered to the ground, looking for all kinds of little dinosaur bone fragments. So in 2022, we came back with like 15 bones. And in 2024, we came back with hundreds of bones that now we have to see if they go back together or not and what kind of dinosaurs they're from. So this is all work that we're still doing. It's a pretty new discovery, and it's going to take us years to figure out exactly what we collected in 2024. But just based on what we know from what we identified in the field, we actually have a bit of an idea of what these dinosaurs are. We know we've got teeth from some kind of big tyrannosaur like Albertosaurus or T-Rex. We've got teeth from a horned dinosaur like Triceratops. We've got lots of big bone chunks from some kind of plant-eating dinosaur that might be that Triceratops-like horned dinosaur, or maybe a big duck-billed dinosaur. We actually have shell from a turtle called a macrobaidid turtle, which is a extinct type, but it would have looked a bit like a snapping turtle. And then the ones we're most excited about are lots of little foot bones from one little small area from some kind of small meat-eating dinosaur. It could be something like a dromaeosaur or raptor dinosaur, or something called an oviraptorosaur or an egg thief dinosaur. So we're really excited about that, and I hope that you'll stay tuned as sort of this journey continues. These dinosaur bones, this is one of the only places that we find dinosaur bones in BC. They're really, really rare, and this is by far the richest spot that we've found yet. These dinosaurs are probably about 68 or 70 million years old. So they're basically from the very end of the age of dinosaurs, right before the asteroid impact that causes the extinction of all dinosaurs except birds. So they tell us a really interesting story because they're from so late in the Cretaceous period. All right, I'm going to move us along to some of our other projects. So dinosaur bones are not very common in BC in general, but dinosaur footprints are. And actually, British Columbia is the best place to find dinosaur footprints in basically all of Canada. So even though we tend not to think about BC as a great place for dinosaur fossils, we actually are. We've known about these dinosaur footprints for at least 100 years, and lots of people have spent time collecting and studying them. The dinosaur footprints are often found in an area of BC we call the Peace region. It's basically sort of like the flatter northeast corner of the province and the sort of Rocky Mountain foothills and sort of at the edge of the mountains. And it's a wonderful place. We find dinosaur footprints in 2 different areas there that we work on. We work on footprints from the Tumblr Ridge area with our friends from the Tumblr Ridge Museum. And we also work on a special dinosaur footprint site called a track site. We call it the Nisatu Nimasu Wachi track site, which is a Cree name given to it by the Saulteaux First Nation. And it's really different. So instead of being up on a mountain, we're actually in the boreal forest. We sort of drive along an old logging road and then get to this beautiful exposed surface with all these dinosaur footprints at the surface. We usually have a big team of people working on it. This just gives you a little slice of the idea of what it is like to sort of be walking around and working at this site. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about how we actually study and collect the dinosaur footprints from there. So at this particular spot, the dinosaur footprints are actually impressed into an ancient mud, and there are lots and lots of them of all different sorts. Most of the dinosaurs leave 3 toes. That's what most dinosaur footprints look like. And the different widths and shapes and sizes tell us about the different types of dinosaurs that could have been leaving these footprints. This site is about 110 to 120 million years old, so it's much older than the Spatsizi Plateau site. There's almost as much time between here and Spatsizi Plateau as between Spatsizi Plateau and us. So the dinosaurs are really different at this site. We've been doing lots of mapping. We've been there 2 times now for about 10 days each. One of the big things we're doing is making a map of the site. So we use this grid square laid on the ground and then draw what we see and take lots of notes in our field notebooks about the sizes of the footprints and what direction they're going in and who might have made them. And we end up with something like this. We've only mapped about 1/3 of the track site so far, and that's what you're seeing here when we add all of those different little drawn pages together. And our guess is that there's probably over 1,000 footprints exposed on this surface, which is about the size of a soccer field. It's a really, really cool spot, a really neat spot to be able to work at and walk around and sort of imagine these dinosaurs moving around this area. Unlike when we're on Spatsizi Plateau and we're collecting the actual dinosaur bones, we usually don't collect original dinosaur footprints. We can, but we also sometimes want to leave them in place, like at this site where we want to see where their relationships with the other footprints. So instead, we make exact copies of them using silicone molding material, basically a silicone rubber that we paint on in layers and we let it dry, and then we put a hard backing on it. And then we get this exact copy. And so my friend Calla Scott, who is the fossil preparator here, does a lot of this work while we're up at the track site. And we've molded about 10 different footprints so far that are now at the Royal BC Museum's collection. So we can sort of look at them and make copies of them too. And we're also doing research on the site to try to figure out what all the different dinosaurs were. When you only have a footprint, it can be a little tricky to figure out which exact dinosaur made that footprint. But that's part of what we're trying to figure out. And unlike a lot of the meat-eating dinosaurs that leave only 3-toed footprints at this site, there are actually a couple of really interesting ones that are very large and leave 4 toes on the ground. There's only a couple of meat-eating dinosaurs that can do that. And so this was the project that one of my students, Teague Dixon, was working on. They were trying to figure out who left these really, really giant 4-toed meat-eating dinosaur footprints. So first they compared it with other footprints that were similar from elsewhere in North America. And then they compared them with the foot skeletons of different dinosaurs that could maybe have left these kinds of footprints. And then by doing lots of interesting math and statistics, they were basically able to find out that the best match for those big 4-toed footprints were from the foot skeletons of oviraptorosaurs. And this is a really big oviraptorosaur, the second biggest one that we know of just based on its footprints. And also one of the oldest ones in North America. So it's really neat. And without this site in British Columbia, we would have no idea that there were big oviraptorosaurs here at that time. Another project we're working on is actually looking at these really interesting, big, beefy, blocky footprints that are found in a couple of sequences across the surface. And this is what my current student, Elodie, is working on. And these are actually the giant footprints of a big plant-eating dinosaur called a sauropod, or a long-necked dinosaur, something like a Brachiosaurus. And these dinosaurs, we don't have their bones in Canada. These are only known from footprints in British Columbia, which is really cool. This is one of only 2 places we actually see them, and the only place we can get really up close to them, which is super cool. So at this site, based on the footprints, we know we've got a sauropod dinosaur and that big oviraptorosaur. We have small meat eaters and small plant eaters, and a big plant eater like Iguanodon, and a big meat eater that was probably more like an Allosaurus than a T-Rex. So very different type of dinosaurs than Spatsizi Plateau, using really different information, footprints instead of bones. So that's really fun. And then the last little project I wanted to talk about that we've been doing, that we published earlier this year in a scientific journal, is on footprints from the Tumblr Ridge area. So these footprints are about 10 million years younger, so they're about 100 million years old, and they're found all in the town of Tumblr Ridge. And this is really fun because this was a chance for me to work on my favorite dinosaurs, the ankylosaurs. Ankylosaur footprints made by a nodosaurid ankylosaur, one that doesn't have a tail club but does have big, cool shoulder spikes, are really common around Tumblr Ridge. And they are a type of footprint that we call Tetrapodosaurus. So Tetrapodosaurus made by a nodosaurid ankylosaur. These footprints have 4 toes on their hind foot and 5 fingers on the front foot. And these types of dinosaurs are the only type that can leave that kind of combination. So that's really cool. We've known about them for a long time. There are hundreds of those footprints around Tumblr Ridge. But my colleagues at the Tumblr Ridge Museum noticed that there were also some interesting footprints that they were pretty sure were made by ankylosaurs because they had 5 fingers on the hands and big, big feet. But these ones only had 3 toes instead of 4. So they asked me what I thought about them, and I got really excited because I know that those can only be made by a group of ankylosaurs called the ankylosaurid ankylosaurs. These are the ones with tail clubs, and they're my very favorite ones, the ones I've spent the most time working on. And this was the first time in the whole world we had found footprints for ankylosaurid ankylosaurs. We know it must be for them because ankylosaurids have 5 fingers on their hands and 3 toes on their feet. So this was a brand new type of dinosaur footprint called Ruopodosaurus. That's the name that we gave it. And this is the first example of their footprints anywhere in the world, and one of the oldest records of these dinosaurs in North America. We would have no idea they were here if not for these footprints in the Tumblr Ridge area of British Columbia. So that was really fun. I loved getting to work on my favorite group of dinosaurs based on footprints in British Columbia. So that was super fun for me. Now we have to go find their skeletons. That will be the next fun project. That brings me pretty much to the end of my dinosaur presentation. I hope you've had a chance to hear about some of the cool things that we've done with dinosaurs in BC. And if you'd like to learn more, you can visit the Royal BC Museum's Learning Portal and find out more about dinosaurs in British Columbia. So thank you so much for listening. I can't wait to answer your questions.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Victoria, and for being so speedy. That was awesome. We've got so much time for Q&A in our Kahoot. I'm going to bring that up to begin, so we're going to do a little 2-minute quiz, test some understanding, have some fun. These are broad, general dinosaur questions, so if you get them, great. If you don't, cool opportunity to reinforce some big concepts. If you have joined us before, great. If you're new to Kahoots, the faster you answer, the more points you get, and what you win is Victoria and I's everlasting respect. So if you want to give us some hints along the way, you're welcome to, and then we are going to dive in. We've got a bevy of live classes on camera, Mrs. Penfold, Ms. Rivera's class, all our YouTube groups. We look forward to your questions as well, but we are going to dive in with this and get underway. Let's do this with a drum roll, please. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Question 1. All right, people have been around for about 300,000 years. How long did dinosaurs rule the earth? Is it 300,000 years also? Is it 1 million years? Is it 18 million years? Or is it over 180 million years? And my hint for this, which I know you love too, is people are closer to T-Rex in time than T-Rex is to Stegosaurus. So like dinosaurs are around so long that you are more like closer in time. Yeah, most of you got this right. Hint, we didn't even need the hint. They nailed it. 180 million years dinosaurs ruled the earth, which is crazy. And Miraculous Mandrill has our lead. All right. Question 2. Birds or dinosaurs? Victoria, do you want to give us any hints for this? I don't know what we should say.
Oh, there's a lot of very feathery dinosaurs out there.
Yeah. So we were talking before we went live about, I was in Berlin recently and saw some really cool fossils. And in Berlin, they have a little chicken set up with a T-Rex. So you can get them both on the same picture. And maybe that would give you a hint that indeed, most of you got that false. Birds are dinosaurs. This is something that, like, when I was a boy, there was like debates around this. We are now very fervent. Like, if you have a chickadee near you, or a chicken, or you turkey dinner for Thanksgiving for our American friends the next couple of days, birds are dinosaurs. They are the last living relatives of them, very, very, in a very concrete sense. So way to go to the 5 of you got that. Miraculous Mandrill's got the lead. This is a multi-select. More than one of these is correct, but they're not all correct. That's your plug. Which of these can we find as fossils? Full body skeletons, footprints, poop, or dino DNA encrusted in mosquitoes trapped in amber like Jurassic Park? So we talked about footprints. We've seen some skeletons. Maybe that'll give you some hints. I wish Jurassic Park were possible. It would be so cool. Alas, no. 10 people thought yes, though. So yeah, we can find full bodies. We can find footprints and poo. There's a special term for poo, Victoria. Can you tell us what it is?
Yes, it's called a coprolite.
Yeah, so scientists come up with these big fancy terms and they sound very fancy and they talk to each other about coprolites. And all that means is that they found a big pile of fossil poo, which is the best. And we learn an awful lot from coprolites. Scientists love finding coprolites. This answer changed our whole leaderboard. Rational Kitten takes our lead. All right, final question. True or false? Dinosaurs are the biggest animals ever found on Earth. I love throwing this in. They're really big. We talked about some really big things today. Are they the biggest ever? I will say, perhaps, we had some ocean broadcasts not too long ago talking about some other really big creatures that exist today that maybe take the cake. Let's see what we've got. Most of you thought true, and most of you are wrong. The blue whale is the biggest animal to ever be on planet Earth. Like, it dwarfs the biggest dinosaur. Dinosaurs rock. They're super cool. It's what we're talking about today. But I wanted to throw that in there to mess you all up. All right. Speedy Squid is third. Second place is Rational Kitten. Start sharing questions on YouTube if you're there. We're going to head to Mrs. Penfold's class in a second. And first, for all the marbles, Miraculous Mandrill, almost end-to-end. Way to go, guys. If you are these folks, let us know who you are. Awesome. All right. We're diving in. We've got tons of time for questions. Mrs. Penfold's class, I'm going to head to you guys first. Come on in and take us away. Always nice to be in Orangeville. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
What is the biggest dinosaur in the world?
Ooh.
Oh, that's such a good question. And all the paleontologists love to argue about that all the time. So sometimes it's really hard to tell what the biggest one is. We know the biggest ones were sauropod dinosaurs. So whatever the biggest one is, it's going to be a long-necked sauropod dinosaur. And it's probably going to be from the group of sauropods that we call titanosaurs, or the titans of the sauropod world. Most of the time, though, their skeletons are really fragmentary. So we might only have like a leg bone or a couple of their neck bones. That can make it really hard to tell exactly how big they were. So we end up having to kind of extrapolate or sort of estimate based on what we have preserved. But some of the very biggest ones were things like Dreadnoughtus from South America, Argentinosaurus from Argentina. And I'm trying to think what some of the other biggest ones are. Futoloncosaurus, which is also a really big one. So most of them are from South America, but they're all really big. They're all like kind of like in the same size range.
Yeah. Well, so I want to harp on something here for a second. And it's one of the key things about being a paleontologist that's so cool is that, like, how could we not know such a thing? Well, we're always finding new dinosaurs. So, like, on Earth right now, there are 2 million at least kinds of animal. And how many species of dinosaur have we found ever in all our hunting? Several thousand, maybe? Something like
I think
that?
it's around like 1,500 that we know of so far. So depending on how many we agree on.
Which is crazy, because over 180 million years, there have been almost certainly like at least 1 million species of dinosaur. Like, it's probably over that time. And we found 1,500, which means that every time we really look and we go to South America and we go to China and we go to North America for the bone beds, we're finding new species. And in fact, we're not just finding new species, we're finding new monstrous species that are like 100 plus feet long. So kids, I mean, whether you just love dinosaurs and you're just keen on them, or you want to become a paleontologist, like if you're like Dr. Arbour, you get to go explore and like find new species. And it's one of the coolest things on planet Earth. So I love that first question. Thank you so, so much. Miss Rivera, if you want to flick on your mic, we'd love to have you come on in Ottawa. We've got one from the chat in the meantime, which is when you're in the field, you highlighted this video of all the mosquitoes horrifyingly as the helicopter's coming in. What are your other challenges in the field? So lots of bugs, anything else that's sketchy?
Lots of bugs. We thought we should maybe make a bingo card of all the different things that can happen to us in the field, but then we didn't want to invite those bad things to happen to us. But on Spatsizi Plateau, the very first year that I went there in 2019, we had just started to find dinosaur bones after days and days of looking in different spots. And then the next day it rained all day, and then it got cold, and it was a giant blizzard in the middle of August, which is a little bit much even for me as a Canadian. So snow can be a problem in British Columbia. We also had to cancel our 2023 Spatsizi trip because of wildfires. And so that can be a problem. We're working off in the forests and in these remote areas. In 2024, the bugs were the worst. The mosquitoes were unlike anything I've ever experienced. They were just on us all the time, and it was horrible, but we still had a great time. And in some places, like in Alberta, it can get really, really, really hot, like much hotter than I'm used to most of the time. So you get to have to experience all these different kind of like weather adventures and animal adventures, but it's all worth it in the end, and it all builds character, which is great. So,
and it makes for fantastic footage and pictures of you being out in the field dealing with all these acts of nature. Fantastic. All right, Miss Rivera, we're going to come in, see if we can hear you guys. Let's talk. Talk to me. Hello, Miss Rivera. Maybe, kind of, sort of. You're there. I can hear you.
Go ahead. Yes, Emilia.
What?
Yes. Just a second, please. Yes, go ahead.
What is the smallest dinosaur?
Ooh, we went from the biggest to the
that's a
smallest,
great
Victoria.
question. Smallest dinosaur. So just like with the biggest one, it's actually kind of hard to tell what the smallest one is. And there's a few that are really small. So some of the really small ones are usually small meat-eating dinosaurs. The classic one is Compsognathus. That's a very small one that's like about the size of a chicken if a chicken had a long tail. And there's a couple of dinosaurs that are all kind of in that size range. There's one called Microraptor, which had wings not just on its arms, but also big wings on its hind legs. And there's another really interesting little guy called Yichi from China, and it has wings that are like a bat's wings instead of feathers, and they're all really, really small. But the actual smallest dinosaur, because all birds are dinosaurs, is a hummingbird that I think is called like the bee hummingbird, and it's teeny, teeny, tiny. So that's the smallest dinosaur that we know of.
There's a hummingbird moth, and the hummingbird moth is bigger than the hummingbird. Like the hummingbirds are so
I believe
tiny.
it.
So I love when we get that question. Also, Microraptor. Everybody should go look up Microraptor when you're done this broadcast. It's one of the coolest fossils in the world. It's so freaky and awesome. I just love it. All right, Mrs. Penfold's class, we're back to Orangeville. Come on in, guys, with the second question. Hey, so many.
Okay, wait. How did the dinosaurs get extinct?
Yes.
Did dinosaurs go extinct? Lots of dinosaurs went extinct, but not all dinosaurs went extinct. So at the very end of the Cretaceous period, this chunk of time where dinosaurs were alive, one of the 3 chunks of times dinosaurs were alive, and that was about 66 million years ago, a huge asteroid the size of Mount Everest crashes into the Earth, and dinosaurs and everything else have a really bad day. Lots of things die within a couple of days of that happening, because it's not really good to have a big mountain slam into your planet.
No.
And so what we've learned, why lots of different people have studied this, most big things couldn't survive that. So big dinosaurs went extinct. And this is probably why birds of all the different groups of dinosaurs survived, because they were small. They could live off of things like seeds and fungi and decomposing things. They didn't need to hunt other dinosaurs or eat grass or ferns. They could sort of live off of what was left over. And they could hide from the heat and the cold that happened after that asteroid impacted. So yeah, most dinosaurs that were alive at that point died. And now we get new dinosaurs in the form of all the birds that we see around us today.
Yep. I love talking about the impact. And I mean, the way I've heard it described, which I really like, is that basically every species larger than a dog went extinct.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Right? Like
you
if you were
to be able to hide from that sort of fiery blast that happened. And so if you could hide in like logs or little caves, or if you could hide at the bottom of a pond, like a turtle could hold its breath and sink down and stay away from that heat, then you could make it. But if you were just exposed on the surface, it wasn't a very good time.
Yeah, it's one of my very favorite things to read about. I've known about this since I was the age of our students today, but the more we learn about it, the more we make that story richer of how bad a day it was, and it's super, super cool science. So thanks, guys. I will say, too, for our audience, we're going to take as many questions as we can, but email me the rest, and I'll pass them to Victoria. We'll get all your dino questions answered. I love how keen you all are. So one of our questions is, if someone wants to be you, they want to go out into the field and deal with the mosquitoes and the heat and the blizzards and everything, what should they do in school?
Yeah, so you got to do a lot of school. So I like to joke with people that by the time I finished school, I was in like grade 22 or 23. So I went to school just like you guys are doing now. After I graduated high school, I went to university. So I did my bachelor's degree, which takes 4 years. Then I did a master's degree, which takes another 2 years. And that's when you kind of start to become like a real scientist, where you're really just kind of doing science work instead of taking classes and sitting in a classroom. And then I did something called a PhD. That's the last degree really you can get. And that takes 5 years. And then I was really old and had lots of knowledge in my brain and knew how to do lots of things. But lots of things that were really helpful was that I had really good teachers and I had really supportive parents who really wanted me to do whatever I wanted to do. I've been really lucky because there's not a lot of jobs for paleontologists, so luck is definitely part of it too. But I've worked really hard to become good at math and science, so learning lots about geology and lots about animals and biology. I've learned a lot about physics and chemistry in order to become a paleontologist. I do a lot of drawing every day, so I do lots of sketching and drawing. I do lots of different kinds of math, and I do a lot of writing. So actually being a good writer is really helpful too. And then I get to do things like this where I talk to different people, so I have good public speaking skills, and enjoy being in the outdoors a little bit. I actually wasn't a really outdoorsy kid. I played outside, but I didn't do a lot of camping. Yeah. And those were things that I learned as a grown-up and learned how to be comfortable while being outside in uncomfortable situations.
Well,
so there's lots of different things to sort of think about and do, and there's lots of different ways to be a paleontologist too.
We're so glad you put in all that effort, because it's always really such a pleasure having you on. And I know luck does play a role, but you certainly put in the work and in every possible way to get here, and it's really, really impressive.
It's really fun too, though. So that's the thing. It's like it's a really fun job, and I really liked doing all of those things. So you got to find something that you really like doing, and then sort of follow it through all the way.
I love stressing that, because to become a doctor in any field is daunting. It's a lot of school, and it sounds very scary. You're in grade 5. The idea of being grade 22 is like, oh my gosh. But like for half of that, you're getting to play for the work that you do. And at the end of that, you're young. You get to work with amazing people from all over the world doing something you love for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
which is pretty great. It's not for everybody, but if it is for you, it is well worth putting that effort. Every person who is a doctor that we have on the broadcast loves what they do, whether it's paleontology, geology, oceanography. There's a lot of cool disciplines out there, so I love that message. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks.
Mr. Rivera's class, we're going to come to you guys. If you want another question, you can unmute your mic and we'll come on in for that. Mrs. Penfold, we're coming back to you guys in a second as well, and keep them coming, YouTubers. While we're waiting for Miss Rivera, since there are a lot of you in Mrs. Penfold's class, I will come back to you guys if you have another one. Come on in. Hey.
What is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, no pressure.
That's a good one. So my favorite type of dinosaur are the armored dinosaurs called ankylosaurs. And I have been very lucky to get to name a few new species of them in my research on dinosaurs. So probably my very favorite dinosaur is Zool curvivastator. That's a really special skeleton I got to describe and help name. And it's at the Royal Ontario Museum. It's actually going on display at the Royal Ontario Museum like in a month from now. So I'm going to have to make a trip to Toronto to go visit it. And then a very, very, very close second is Buster the Ferrosaurus, because it's such a special dinosaur for me and for British Columbia. Two very different dinosaurs, a little one and a big one, a spiky one and a not spiky one, but I really like those two quite a lot. So
I want to stress for our kids, just put something in context. First of all, ankylosaurs were never on my personal list of favorite dinosaurs until I met you, and you have put them near like the top of the list. Like, I'm a big predator guy.
They're very cool dinosaurs.
They're so cool. Yeah. And I encourage you all to look up Zool. So this is, again, one that you named. And when you get to be a paleontologist like Victoria, you get to name a dinosaur after like a demon dog in a funny movie called Ghostbusters. So like for any of you who aren't familiar with Ghostbusters, you can name things whatever you want when you become a paleontologist, which is super fun. You get to be like, anyway, beyond thrilling. So thank you for that great question, guys. Is there a favorite part of your job? So you highlighted a lot that you get to do. Is there anything that really like gets you up in the morning?
That's a hard question to answer. I like so many parts of it. I think what I really like is that there's so much variety and I get to be so creative and do something different all the time. So I love going into the field. I love sitting down and writing up and thinking about what I've just found. I love visiting other museums and looking at the fossils in their collections to compare things. I love that I get to do art and drawing as part of it. So it's hard to pick one favorite thing. Sorry, I feel like I like all of it.
It's a pretty great answer to have. So I really, really appreciate that. Yeah. I also, on the ankylosaur note, I want everyone to also look up Borealopelta. So we talked about this when they found this fossil. And like, quite often in paleontology, the fossils are like, they're pretty good, they're okay, they're scattered, they're whatever. And then there's Borealopelta, which is the most absurd, like it looks fake. As kids, you will honestly think it's AI, but it's a real fossil that we actually found, and it's mind-blowing, and it's an ankylosaur, and it totally rocks.
Yeah, it's a beautiful fossil.
All right, time flies and you're having fun. We're going to take just 2 more questions before we wrap up. You talked about finding dinosaurs in BC today. Is there anywhere that you'd really like to go, like a dream paleontology destination?
Oh, what a great question. So I have a couple places. So one of my favorite places that I have been to was actually my very first dinosaur dig was looking for dinosaurs in Nova Scotia. Again, not a place that we think of, but they have really cool dinosaurs. And I would love to go back and look for more of them with my friends at the Fundy Geological Museum sometime. And that's a beautiful spot to go visit. I guess like places on my list that I'd love to go look for dinosaurs is I think it would be super cool to go on one of the Antarctic dinosaur expeditions sometime. And I feel like I've had some good practice working in the snowy mountains in BC at this point. So I think that would be a real adventure. But everywhere I've been is so beautiful and so different. It's all amazing. We live on an amazing planet and everywhere is so cool and the people are different and you make new friends and try new food and get to see cool animals and cool landscapes. So it's all great.
What a great message. I want to harp on something very briefly. We're going to sneak this in. Why would dinosaurs be in Antarctica for our students that might not know?
That's a great question. So when dinosaurs were alive, the planet was a lot warmer and the continents were in different positions. And that meant that Antarctica, even though it was pretty close to where it is now, it wasn't covered in ice. So you could actually live on Antarctica all year long with forests and trees and plants to eat. And so there were dinosaurs living in Antarctica millions of years ago.
Yeah, and one of the coolest ones for anyone who wants to check it out is Cryolophosaurus, which is like this like mid-sized, not as big as T-Rex apex predator that's got this cool head frill and looks really awesome, and I just absolutely love them. So I encourage you to check those out. Mrs. Penfold's class, you guys have been so keen, so I'm going to bring you in for one final question before we say farewell. Come on in and take us away. Hey.
Like, what's the forest name that most dinosaurs live in?
Oh, what's the forest named that most dinosaurs live in? Yeah. Well, that's a great question. Dinosaurs lived in lots of different environments. And so a lot of dinosaurs that lived in places like Alberta or Montana, they were living in what would have looked a lot like Louisiana or Florida today. So we would call those things like cypress swamps. So where there's lots of cypress trees, it's kind of boggy and muddy in places. There's lots of rivers and the ocean is really close by. But dinosaurs lived in all kinds of different environments. There are dinosaurs that lived in deserts, like in Mongolia, like very similar to what it looks like there today. There are dinosaurs that lived in the mountains, like the ones that we have in BC. Were in the mountains finding the fossils, but they also were living in the mountain valleys that existed back then. And like I said, there were dinosaurs that lived in forests that would have been totally different from anything today. With different types of plants and trees and living at the poles, like in Antarctica. So things that we don't really have a close comparison to. So that's a great question. I hope that answers what you were thinking.
It's a great question. And I want to stress, I don't usually highlight things that people have to pay for, but I can't encourage enough. The greatest series ever on dinosaurs is Prehistoric Planet. There's 2 seasons of it. They highlight different habitats that dinosaurs live in. So if you ever get the chance, it's on Apple TV. It's really amazing. It's like one of the favorite things I've ever watched in my life. So they highlight things in Antarctica and in cold places, warm places, in the sky, in the water. Can't recommend it enough. Victoria, this has been so much fun. I know our kids are wrapping up their day pretty soon. So before we go and bring in our classes to say thank you and farewell, is there any final message you want to leave our classes with today?
I just hope everyone enjoyed learning about dinosaurs and follows whatever they're interested in doing. If it's dinosaurs, if it's something else, and just stay curious and keep exploring.
No better message than that. Thank you so much for joining us. Our second paleontology program of the day will be on YouTube. So if anyone wants to share with family and friends, they can go there. And as you well know, we wrap up every broadcast by bringing in our classes to say a big thank you and farewell. If you're on YouTube and you want to scream and yell, you're welcome to annoy the principal. You have our permission. Mrs. Harris' class, Mrs. Penfold's class, thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful day.